7:42.
The Radio Wammo Breakfast
The voice of the creative economy.
with Vincent Heeringa.
It's from Idealogue magazine, idealogue.co.nz, and NZ Marketing as well. Good morning to you, Vincent.
Good morning, Wammo.
And this morning we're taking the temperature of the nation. How are people feeling? What is the confidence out there? What's the outlook, I suppose?
We asked marketers through New Zealand Marketing Magazine and Stop Press, the online marketing blog. We asked marketers towards the end of last year and the beginning of this year, so it was sort of December, January, and then a little bit into February actually, what the mood of the year will be, what will marketers be spending their money on. And now just to qualify when we say marketers, so these are the people that are spending money on billboards and TV campaigns and magazine ads and posters and flyers, and so the advertising and communication stuff we see that's the decision of the marketing managers.
Right.
So what you see there, their mood is a real barometer of where the consumption economy is, the consumer economy. And pretty interesting results actually, Wammo. We asked them last year, so it's good to make a comparison with last year, and actually, the sense of optimism is even lower this year than it was last year. You'd think 2010 was the nadir of the consumer economy, but only 46% overall are positive about the year ahead in terms of the economy, and that's down from just over 50 last year.
Which is odd, because towards the end of last year, it did start to feel like things were improving. Even though some stats were saying otherwise, there was I don't know, maybe it's just anecdotal, but it felt like things were on the up.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think I'll go into a minute into why some of those things are true, but just before we get to that, if you contrast the marketers' expectations for the economy with their expectations of their own companies, there's a marked difference. This comes up in other confidence surveys as well. Generally speaking, this is something about New Zealand's sentiment, is that on the whole, New Zealanders feel more optimistic about their own personal situation than they do about the rest of the country. I'm sure in America it's probably the other way around, where people feel incredibly optimistic about their own country, but 75% optimism for their own companies, as opposed to 46% optimism for the rest of the country.
Interesting.
And I think that 75 number is the one to watch, because, how do you know what the rest of the country is going to do, whereas you have a much more intelligent grasp on your own company. And that's up from 69% last year, so a good 6% increase there in optimism on the individual and the company front rather than the country.
Yeah.
So that might temper this overall kind of, if 46% are feeling positive, that means that 54% are feeling negative on the whole.
But of course, this is all pre-earthquake, isn't it?
This is pre-earthquake, exactly. So there needs to be a big asterisk here, because we know that the earthquake will have some effect. It's going to be mixed, actually, Wammo. If you talk to some people in Queenstown and Nelson and Dunedin, as I've been doing in the last few days, you get a sense that those areas are major beneficiaries of the exodus from Christchurch. So, the big asterisk is on the earthquake. The other question that we put to them is, what do they think consumers will be spending their money on this year? And we asked them to categorise it, and there the story is a bit more interesting. Overall, they think marketers are saying the number one priority for spending is around DIY and home. So you're seeing there a kind of pent-up frustration with, if we're not moving house to a nicer place, then let's do up our own property. So there's quite a in fact, 21% of them are saying that there's going to be an increase and quite a significant increase in DIY spending. So great news for tradesmen and building supply companies, and
more ads for Bunnings then.
More ads for Bunnings and and Light of 10.
Brilliant.
By contrast, right down the bottom, the bit that people are thinking that there's going to be the most modest or even negative growth is in cars and luxury. So again, this sort of sense of this real sense of cautiousness about where we are in the economy. There's big ticket items are not selling at the moment.
Okay, and any other interesting points from the survey?
Well, we put a couple of questions to them about if you were spending money on media, like on advertising, or where would you be if you're a marketer? Where would you spend your money? I don't think it's. Where would you put it? What would you say would be the top one or two media places to put your money?
Well, I mean, the trend obviously is towards online, isn't it?
Absolutely, that's number one, and social media is number two, and PR is number three. So all areas where the spend is quite. But
is that what they're actually doing? That's what like they might say that because they think that that's the thing to say. That's the thing to think that's what they should be doing. But are they actually doing that?
Well, I can't remember the exact numbers, Wammo, but there continues to be double-digit growth in digital advertising, and we notice it ourselves as publishers that the online side is growing and growing quite fast. So yeah, I think they are, and they're investing in social media. So a lot of companies, a mate of mine, for instance, just got a job with a major bank as their social media manager. And this is a guy who was a really senior journalist, has got a very well-paid job, annoyingly well-paid, I must point out, as their social media manager. So companies, whether they're spending money on the actual media, they're investing in that space, in digital and in social media.
At the cost of what, TV, radio, magazines?
Yeah, down the bottom are your traditional media, the ones that are overall still showing growth and holding their positions. Like magazines, for instance, being a magazine publisher, I was hoping this would be the result, but magazines are holding their position, not necessarily growing in terms of advertising spend, but not falling either. The biggest ones taking the hit are radio and newspaper. Those are the ones that there's a reasonably negative sentiment around. It's kind of worrying.
Well, indeed. Thanks.
But just lastly, Wammo, Rugby World Cup, we asked them, are they going to spend money, marketers going to spend money on the Rugby World Cup? And I was amazed. 58%, and almost 60% of them said no, actually.
Oh, okay.
Nothing doing around the Rugby World Cup.
Well, that's because it's so...
Yes.
Well, it's so locked up, isn't it? Already.
It's so locked up, and yeah, you're absolutely right. So what can you do? It's around the margins, and I suppose probably related to, tourism and hospitality.
Exactly. All right, those are some interesting results there, Vincent. Thanks very much for telling us all about them.
Pleasure, Wammo.
And you can head along to stoppress.co.nz for more on that as well.